Are you ready to start?
I don't know what to do with my hands, so
So guys, I'm Will. I'm one of the tour guides here at the Battle of Franklin Trust.
And I'm Bill. I'm another one of the historical interpreters here on site. I know nothing about guns, whereas Will knows probably everything about guns.
We thought we would bring some props in and we would tell you a little bit about it. So Bill, why don't you start off with talking about the most common guns?
Well, you're going to have your Springfield 1861. Well, the 1851 was a model, correct?
So why don't I start?
Yeah, why don't you start with the guns?
So here we go. The most common weapon in the pre-Civil War era that the armies are going to be using are going to be just a smoothbore musket. But around the time that the Civil War started, middle to late 1850s, armies start to adopt what's known as the rifled musket. And basically it's a barrel that has grooves cut into the inside of the barrel, and you have a round kind of like the one I'm holding, which is a 58 caliber round, and it has a hollow base. So the idea is that the ammunition is slightly smaller than the inside of the barrel. When you shoot this, the base expands. It's easy to load like a musket, but it's accurate like a rifle. The most popular ones is you have the 1861 Springfield, which is used by both sides extensively through the war, and then almost as extensively as the 1853 three-band Enfield, which is a rifled musket that was developed in England.
What's the accuracy on one of these? You said it's the musket-loaded one, so it has those ridges on it, so it will spin through the barrel a little bit easier. Kind of like when you throw a football, right?
Yeah, so the difference is accuracy on this, it's not about the gun, it's about the person holding it. For instance, your average infantryman, especially if they're coming out of urban areas, don't have a lot of experience with guns. The idea is that through what minimal training they got, they're probably combat effective range of maybe 200 yards. Patrick Claiborne, one of the generals killed here at the Battle of Franklin, actually taught his men to shoot their rifles out to about 500 or 600 yards. We have a gun actually sitting here on the table. This is one of mine. This is a muzzle-loading weapon, which means that from the barrel end, you would take a ramrod, and I can actually pull this one out and show you. Okay, maybe not. So this is a ramrod, and to load one of these weapons, you have to have powder, you have to have your shot, and then you have to ram it all down the barrel with this. They have what's called a breech loader. So breech loader, you don't have to do that. A breech loader, you hit a button, you throw a lever, twist the gun somehow, and the barrel just pops open, or the breech pops open, and you basically just shove a preloaded cartridge up in there, close it, prime it, cock the hammer, shoot. Soldiers loved them because they were durable. They didn't have very many moving parts. One of the cooler guns had this thing in the butt where it's like a little funnel in the buttstock, and you could pour beans or corn or whatever in there, and then you could basically hold your hand over it and just crank this little handle on the butt of the gun, and it would come out coffee or cornmeal or whatever you needed.
So you have a multi-use gun and coffee grinder.
It would have made sense if they issued them to the cooks.
The Smith & Wesson Model 2 that Moscow had, was that a breech loader? Because it was a pistol, and you lifted the barrel up to reload, correct?
Technically speaking, yes. So Moscow's gun, that's a revolver, so that's a handgun. But technically, yeah, it is a breech loading type of handgun because you load enclosed cartridges. So it wouldn't be like just the ball and the powder and the cap all separate.
Would you not burn the hell out of your hand, though, after firing that a couple times and going to reload it?
I mean, it depends on how many rounds you shoot. You go boom, 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 and you're like, oh, it's not that bad. If you've been out there in the middle of the Battle of Franklin, you've been shooting for 5 hours,
yeah,
you're going to look like you grabbed a hold of a curling iron. You were asking me about the Lamat revolver.
Yeah, because it's a revolver and a shotgun.
Yeah.
Francis Lamat, he's a Frenchman that comes to New Orleans. First he's a minister, then he becomes a doctor, and then he creates this gun. Interesting enough, he marries the cousin of P.T. Beauregard.
Yeah.
So he has a connection there. P.T. Beauregard financed a lot of his inventions for this gun, and it was mostly used with the Confederate Navy and Army. I think they only made like 1,200 of these or so, but it was just a monster of a gun.
So one of the cool things about the Lamat is you get 9.44 caliber shots. When you've got the cylinder empty, the big pin that the cylinder revolves around in the center is hollow, and it is about a 16 gauge shotgun, and you could load that thing with double alt buck and ball.
So could you switch between them, or did you have to fire all rounds of
No, you could
pistol
switch
and then the
between
shotgun?
them. But the thing is, in like a combat situation, you don't want to go like shotgun, and then you don't want to have to cock that hammer and try to flip that little pin while the horse is bucking and everybody's shooting at you. Oh, you know what's funny? gun, the Henry.
Yeah, it's like the assault rifle of the Civil War. It's
pretty
the
much
closest thing they had to one of those.
Something like the gun that we've got sitting here, which is a double-barreled shotgun. You get 2 shots, and then you have to reload. A Henry is the same operating principle. You just lever, and it cocks and loads the gun.
So it's what my Red Ryder BB gun when I was a kid
Exactly.
is based off
It's
of.
the same type of thing.
Yeah.
Basically, you can fire, lever, fire, lever, fire.
Which is a game changer if you're having to reload one of these after every shot.
Oh yeah, if you're the dude that's standing in front of Casements Brigade during this battle, and you're standing there like trying to tamp the barrel, and all of a sudden you look up and there's a guy over there just...
Because what, he can get 6 shots out on your
16.
16?
16. So potentially, a man with a Henry could shoot 32 or 40 shots a minute, whereas your average soldier maybe is good enough to get 2 shots. To give you kind of an example, here, look at that. That's a 45, so that's fairly close to what a Henry slug would be like. This is a 58, so that's just 0.2 more than what a Spencer would have been.
And the 58 was the kind of go-to standard of the time. What is the significance of the 1861 Springfield Trenton? They're a rarer one, correct? Like they're a pretty sought-after collector's item.
So the thing is that to meet demand for this growing U.S. Army force, there was a lot of problems with trying to get men armed. You could have little mom and pop gun shops, you could have gunsmiths who worked within their homes that are building guns, and then you could have factories. And so the Trenton Springfield is one of those examples where it was made by a small company in New Jersey. But the thing is they had particular markings that only those guns had.
Okay. So your 1861 Springfield could be made by multiple different companies?
Yeah, just like in World War II, the M1 Garand, which is one of the premier military rifles in the world, was made by 4 different companies. So because the Trenton Springfields were built at one site, okay, and then you have the Colt Springfields built at another site. It's not like today where you have the CNC machining and you can make everything precise and it's exactly the same across the board. When you're hand fitting one of these guns together, it's basically somebody with a big pair of Coke bottle glasses sitting there just with a file just doing this till it fits. Somebody with a Trenton Springfield and somebody with a Colt 1861 Springfield, they meet up in the field and he needs an extra part. You can't give him one. It won't work. They look the same, but the fit and finish is different.
What kind of weapon would your typical United States colored troop have?
Probably a Springfield. Some of them might have been issued Enfield, some of them might have been issued Lorenz's, but I would say for the most part it's going to be an 1861 Springfield. Just because those are formulated so late in the war, specifically like the 13th and the 14th that's at the Battle of Nashville, those are going to be handed Springfield rifles. Most of your Confederates that go in try to get muskets, usually from armories, and that's why they have such crappy stuff at the start, because it's all Mexican War issue.
And won't they also be using just like their typical just hunting rifles?
Yeah, it's kind of like this shotgun here. This one wasn't used during the war, but this is very typical of what somebody would have owned. This was made around 1840. If you were a Confederate farmer and you were from a poor region and you join up in a regiment and you don't have guns, it's very possible you toted your shotgun or your hunting rifle.
There's the story about the sharpshooter here at the Battle of Franklin that was firing at one of the guys operating some of the U.S. artillery.
So Isaac Shannon was under Claiborne's division here, and he has a Whitworth rifle. So a Whitworth was a imported rifle from Britain. Isaac Shannon said that it was a really accurate rifle and it did its job, but he said there was no heavier rifle or harder kicking. But he said that he was shooting at gunners on one of the artillery batteries and that he was trying to wound or kill them so it'd keep the guns quiet. Apparently at one point they start taking artillery fire, and he said that one of the balls hit in front of him, and I think he said he picked rocks out of his face for a week.
Here at Tarnton, we talk about the aftermath of the battle and what these weapons are doing to the men. And we talk about the amputations and how the bullet right here will just mushroom and flatten, just absolutely destroy the human body.
The 45 round right here, it will deform, but only slightly, because it's got copper on it. It's a hard case. That lead, I could almost take a hammer and smash that down into a disc. And if it hits flesh, it's going to be about double the size when it exits. If it hits bone, it's just going to shatter.
Make sure to hit that like and subscribe button at the bottom.
Yeah, that if you're looking for additional information about Civil War firearms, one of the excellent books that we carry in our gift shop it's simply called Civil War Firearms by Joseph Bilby. Otherwise, guys, I'm Will.
I'm Bill.
And thanks for watching.